Hey everybody, it's Josh. Doing one last video before I leave because I always have so much on my mind hearing from you all. And many of the problems that you all write to me about or comment on or I hear about, they're problems that I've dealt with. So I like to go through them and just kind of work through them from someone who at least relates a little bit to what you're going through. Now, we're all so uniquely different. It is always, it's always going to be different in some ways. So none of us know exactly what the other was going through. For instance, one of us could have some sort of diagnosed mental illness like bipolar, or we could have social anxiety caused by different things, or who knows. And that changes our perspective completely. I also believe that God takes that into account. We think that God is just cut and dry. Like, he'll judge us. If we sin, he judges us for it. That's it. Well, first of all, Christ died for our sins, so you are not going to be judged like that unless you know the truth about Christ. And that does not mean you know the gospel, the Gospels, the scriptures, you have read them, you know the stories. Once they click in your head, once they are part of your life, once you surrender yourself to God and Christ completely, then if you completely turn your back on Christ, then that is when you have to worry about, well, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about anything. But that is when God knows you have known the truth. You have seen my grace. You have seen my forgiveness. You have seen my embrace. And you choose to go back to the world. Now, it's never too late to turn back again. But if you have it in your mind, oh, I'm just going to go live my life and then I'm going to go back, before it's too late. Before I die, I'll just make sure I go back and ask for forgiveness. That's not how it works. It's not a little child's game like that. Now that I surrendered myself, if I chose to just going back to living the selfish, spite-filled lifestyle that I lived, then I can't expect God to just forgive me if my plan is to just turn right back to him before I die at some point. Now, if I slip back into it, if I am drawn back in and, let's say I was an alcoholic and the alcohol the temptation got too much for me. I started drinking again. I didn't feel good about it. I was trying to stop, but the addiction was so hard. I was trying everything I could. That is a lot different. That is when God's grace comes into play. Or if I was bipolar and I went on I had a bipolar swing, a manic rage or whatever, and it took me went out and started cheating on my wife or something. That would be a lot different than me, who have not been diagnosed with bipolar. Who knows what I would have if I let the psychologists actually get a hold of me and told them the truth about everything in my past. But it would be a lot different for me that's not an excuse. Mental illness is not an excuse. Nothing is an excuse. It is an honest flaw or an honest thing that we must deal with, and God knows what we are dealing with. I always think about the story of Blackbeard the pirate, right? Edward Teach. He was not a good man. We'll say like an anti-hero or something. We're just using him as an example of something that is like in the gray area. But he literally fought for freeing slaves. He fought to just liberate them. They had their own little democracy within the pirate community. They had their own way of doing things, and he was accepting of everybody. In fact, one of his best friends was a slave. And then he started to go crazy. He started to get tempted by, the governor said, here, I think he even married the governor's daughter. And he lived in this big, nice mansion and had all this nice stuff, and everything was going good. And then he just went back into he was drawn back into the piracy. And not only that, but he worked to catch slaves this time. Catch runaway slaves, catch, enslaved people. The reason this is a kind of gray area story is because Blackbeard had syphilis. And syphilis back in the day meant a death sentence, but it also meant you're going to lose your mind. Hitler also had syphilis. I don't know when he caught it. I don't know how much it affected what he did. And I certainly hope that he gets whatever fair judgment God gives him, obviously, with the evil that he did. But what if like a brain tumor or something causes somebody to turn away from God or to turn evil? These are questions that we don't know because we were never told this. The scriptures don't speak about this. But you look at every single prophet, just about every figure except for Christ in the Bible, including Peter. And I was asked by someone who said, they pointed to 2 Peter, I think chapter 2, and was talking about if you learn the truth of Christ and you turn away, it was better that you never learn the truth at all. Because that is you're damned to hell pretty much. Peter himself denied Christ 3 times after he knew the truth of Christ. So, is Peter talking about himself? Is he going to hell? Is just about every single prophet at some point fell into temptation and turned away from God. I talked in the last video about Elijah running from God. I don't even know what order I'm going to release these videos in, but it is gray areas. But you look at how God treated his prophets, his chosen ones, the kings. I mean, King David, wow. King Saul. I mean, there are very few people I can think of in the Bible who were anywhere close to perfect, like I said, besides Christ. And they all were chosen by God. A lot of them heard God's voice and God speaking to them, and they still turned back to sin. It is, I think, just a personal bias if you think that God is going to judge you for something like slipping back into temptation. Again, it is not an excuse. There are moments of weakness. There are moments of there are literal sins probably crossing through our minds, who knows how many times a day. We all just have to understand that God is a God of grace and compassion. That is why Christ came, to show us this. We cannot live up to the standard that he wants. If you're going and you're honestly turning your back on God, and you're honestly just completely ignoring everything that the truth that you've learned, then I believe that you will be judged accordingly. I want to talk about, I have someone who has been having trouble sleeping because they are just riddled with guilt. They're reading these verses in the Bible where it tells them, like 2 Peter 2, where it's telling them it's better to have not known the truth, because if you turn back to a life of sin, you're done for. I think we all put this guilt, this shame on ourselves. A lot of us we're all so different, but some of us feel like we should be judged for things we've done in the past. Maybe we've had someone who has told us over and over that we're just not good enough. At some point, our self-esteem has been shattered. Mine wasn't. I never really even had somebody telling me that. I mean, I was called the fat kid. I was like a roller coaster of weight when I was a kid, when I was young. Sometimes I was very like top fitness, and sometimes I was just a fat slob, kind of like I am now, but it's a process, But we feel this low self-esteem. And yes, sometimes there are actual chemical imbalances, and a lot of times you need to get that taken care of. I don't know. I've had social anxiety my entire life. I don't know if that's from a chemical imbalance. I don't know. I chose to find ways to use it to my advantage. I used that nervousness I was amazing at football and weightlifting and certain sports. I used it to think of funny things so I could just make people laugh. That gave me purpose. I channeled that anxiety and tried to use it for something positive. Now, was it always something positive? No. Did it get me into places I didn't want to be? Yes. It is not easy. But this is the way that God made us. You are beautifully broken. All of us are. Once we learn that, and once we can accept God and Christ into our heart, we will find that these chemical imbalances, or whatever they are. No, you see my cut there. I'm not into that on purpose. It was leaning on my porch and it fell right in. But these chemical imbalances, or whatever little weird quirks or flaws, or whatever you think it is that you have, whatever you've been diagnosed with, God can turn it into a gift for you. He really can. Now, I'm not saying if you've got a bad case of bipolar, or if you've got schizophrenia, or if you've even got anxiety that just won't let you rest. I am not saying that you should not seek help for that, because you need to seek help for whatever. There's things that you can't control. I have a damaged nerve in my back, my right sciatic nerve. I have to take medication. Sometimes I use cannabis. Sometimes I use other medication doctors give me. My doctors know about the cannabis, so I work with them. But I do the very bare minimum of what I can to manage that pain and still be able to move around and get around during the day. I always try to do the bare minimum. But you're going to find doctors who are also going to just prescribe you crazy amounts of medication and you don't need it. And yes, it sucks and it's hard. And sometimes when you have a mental health issue, it's going to be a process. As many of you with bipolar know, you're going to have to change medications left and right. And then when you're on medication, you're going to feel like a zombie sometimes. Now, is that good? Feeling like a zombie? I don't think so. Is it better than what you had? It's only up to you to decide. And I guess sometimes you don't have a choice. They're just going to medicate you if your mental health issue is bad enough. The person I was talking to about, I've been working with, they are having problems sleeping, and I think it's the anxiety, and I think they think they should be punished and they feel shame about it. Maybe they have some sort of bipolar too. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a doctor. What I can say is that spiritual healing is what I know about. When you are reborn, when you are healed and baptized in the Spirit, it purifies the rest of your life. Now, as of right now, again, I have pain in my right leg, in my back. Why didn't God heal that for me? I've asked him to please help ease the pain before, but he showed me. He showed me exactly why he has not. He showed me why I have to have this pain. And I'm thankful I'm able to walk and I'm able to move. Sometimes I can walk about 3 miles a day. If I've got my walking stick, I can go pretty far. But then I try to sit on a chair or I try to stand in one place without my stick, and I can't last more than a couple minutes. And people judge me for it. And people are going to judge you for your mental health issues, for your physical disabilities, especially ones they can't see. They will judge you because people are cruel and people are judgmental and people will always just ascribe what they think other people should be like to you. I get dirty looks and strange looks and all kinds of stuff when I'm like, no, I can't make it to church, or I can't do this or that, and they're like, what the hell's wrong with you? We saw you out walking the other day or doing this and that or at the pool. It's like, you don't understand. I can't sit there and explain to them how I am in horrible pain all the time. And when I do certain things, it makes it a lot worse. And when I do other things, it makes it actually better, at least in the long term. So you end up justifying yourself and your disabilities or your weaknesses or whatever you have to them. I try not to do that anymore because, first of all, it's nobody else's business. Second of all, I am good with God now. Nothing else matters to me except for, well, nothing else matters really except for, I'll try to do what I can for my family to make them happy, but no stranger judging me or no acquaintance or even friend judging me makes a bit of difference anymore. If they don't like who I am, or if they think I'm somehow faking my back injury, let them think it. It's like I told my daughter, who is just riddled with social anxiety now because she's been bullied for years now. And she had social anxiety before, but now that she's been bullied, now she thinks everyone is going to treat her the same, and she just would rather just not deal with anyone. And I told her, that is how the bullies beat you. You're letting them steal your joy. Don't let anyone steal your joy. You are a beautifully broken person, but you are still beautiful. You have to get right with God. And that is all that matters. Even your spouse, even your kids, even your friends, even your parents, it doesn't matter. As long as you're right with God, the rest will follow. Those relationships, if they're not meant to be, they're not meant to be. But you know what? If you're right with God, it won't matter one bit. It won't matter if you're alone the rest of your life. If God told me to go out and live in the woods like a wild man, like Elijah, I'd be like, well, really? Okay. He had ravens bringing him food while he lived in the woods. Like, okay, the raven's gonna bring me some. Hopefully they'll bring me some steak or something good. Obviously I'm a human and I'm scared of big change still. I'm not scared the way I used to be, but I get worried about it. I get troubled by it. Like, wow, really? I gotta, this is really going to set my pain off, or this is really going to, I don't think it's going to be good for me, but you know what? I don't doubt where God takes me is where I'm supposed to be anymore. If you're lying in bed at night and you can't sleep because you have such bad anxiety, try opening your heart to God. Do those meditative relaxation practices. I actually learned one when I was very young, and it is amazing. I use it almost every night, and sometimes during the day. I will take a deep breath and feel like this purifying air coming into my body. And I'll start with my feet. And I'll feel that purifying air come into my feet as I take a breath in. And then as I breathe out, I let all the tension and stress just float away. Blow it away like a dragon blowing fire out. Those blue skies in and the storm clouds out. Start with my feet. I go to my calves, my thighs, all the way, all the parts you're not supposed to talk about. My spine. Oh, when I get to my spine, my thighs, when I do it, when I breathe out, and I relax my thighs completely, it is like a high. It really is. It is so relaxing, and it is so, the comfort is overwhelming. Not overwhelming, but just amazing. And I feel so good. And then I get all the way to the top of my head, and I'll try to relax my face and my forehead. And if I'm still thinking about, or if I'm still stressed out, or I'm still like hurting, I will start to process over, and I'll do it as many times as I need to. Some nights it ain't happening. Some nights it won't work. If you got a lot going on, sometimes it's not going to work. But I like to do this, and I like to do this while I'm praying and worshiping, and I would like to let God purify me. Let God heal me. And then if I have troubles, I will acknowledge them and move them from my mind and focus on the relaxation. And once I'm relaxed, I'll try to either think of something that's calm or peaceful, or I'll try to just see where God is taking me. This is the way I get into like kind of a meditative state, to help God show me what he's trying to show me. Often he speaks to me through nature, the plants, the trees, the animals, the birds, the wind, the rocks. Sometimes he speaks to me through whispers in the wind. Sometimes he speaks to me through stray thoughts. These thoughts aren't always from God, obviously. But usually what they are, if he pops this in your head, either it's so profound that you're basically sure, or it's the beginning of a thread that you have to follow. It's the beginning of the breadcrumb trail. And I'll follow it wherever it needs to go. I try to do everything I can to be a faithful servant to God. And sometimes he's leading you to go get medical attention. Sometimes he's leading you to go get your mental health or physical health checked. But oftentimes, he will heal you and calm you and fill you with such peace. It is just outstanding. It really is. Okay, everybody, I better get going. I'm supposed to be going to get gas. But I'm going to go, and I'm taking my trip. I will see you all. This will probably be released, sometime early in the week. So I will see you all next week. Love you all. God bless.